And feeling sit bones into the ground. And the spine begin to elongate. The crown being drawn up. Pull the shoulders up towards the ears. Back towards the back. And slide them down towards the ground. Slide the shoulders forward. Slide the shoulders up. Slide the shoulders back. Slide the shoulders down. Lift the chest. Lean just a little bit forward. So you just feel that kind of elongation, back side of the spine. Inhaling through the nose. Exhaling through the nose. Inhaling. Exhaling. Soften the shoulders, soften the face. Keep the spine elongated, pressing down into the sit bones, lengthening up through the crown. Soften. Allow. Soften. Allow. Keep elongating the spine. So you're playing with yin and yang energy, this yang energy holding you up, almost a sort of feeling of levitating up off the ground, as though you're going to start to take off the ground. At the same time, relaxing the shoulders, face, thighs, elongating up, relaxing, letting go. Holding both energies simultaneously, lengthening the spine, opening the rib cage, softening the shoulders, the face, the thighs. Inhaling and exhaling deeply through the nose. We're going to do a little series of mudra meditations here, posture meditations here, which are going to run us through and create a little bit of heat, a little bit of tapas right now. So just bringing your arms out in front of you. Intertwine, you're just keeping your palms together and cross your right thumb over your left. So your hands, right thumb over the left, and your hands are straight out in front of you. Pulling your elbows towards each other, tucking the chin, lengthening up through the crown. Just breathe deeply, holding this posture now. Inhaling and exhaling. You can close your eyes and go inward. Start to focus on the third eye. In a moment, we're going to begin to whistle along with the Aras Bahi meditation here in the background. Closing the eyes, lengthening the spine, and just breathing deeply for right now. Holding this posture. Some energy will start to build.
Amardas Pai, Amardas Guru, Amardas Guru, Amardas Pai, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Sachi Sai. Amardas Pai,
Listening to the mantra, softening the face, lifting the chest, lengthening up to the crown, breathing deeply. Eyes closed, focusing on the third eye. The sensations come and go in waves. And begin to whistle along with the mantra.
Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Sachi Sai. Amardas Pai, Amardas Guru, Amardas Guru, Amardas Pai, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Sachi Sai. Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Sachi Amrdas Pai, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Pai, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Sachi Amrdas Pai, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Pai, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Sachi Amrdas Pai, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Pai, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Sachi
Keep going, a little bit more.
Amrdas Pai, Amrdas Guru,
The sensations come, let them wave, let them crest, let them break, let them go. The energy swirl.
Amrdas Pai, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Pai, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Sachi Amrdas Pai, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Pai, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Sachi Amrdas Pai, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Pai, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Sachi Amrdas Pai, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Guru, Amrdas Pai, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Ramdas Guru, Sachi
Inhale.
Amrdas Pai,
As you exhale, bring your arms up over your head, about 8 inches over your head. Your palms are facing down above your shoulders. Fingertips are in a line with about your ears. Pull the shoulders, pull the chin. Breathe deeply, keep breathing here. And we're going to start to breathe in a certain pattern now. Inhaling in 8 strokes through the nose. Exhale out 8 strokes through the nose. Hold. Inhale 8 strokes. Exhale 8 strokes. 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 Hold the breath out. Keep the spine elongated. Inhale 8 strokes. Exhale 8 strokes. Hold. 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 Now inhale, bring your arms out 60 degrees. Palms face towards the front. Fingers together, thumbs extend out. Begin breath of fire. Pump the belly. 2 minutes here. Keep the energy, keep moving. Keep letting the heat purify. The last part of the meditation here before stillness. Inhale, arms up. Thumb tips touch. Elongate. Chin lock, root lock. Pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up. As you exhale, slowly release the arms. Take your time. Go really slow. Feel. Keep the spine elongated. Chin pulled back. Crown up. Just feel. Notice. Feel. Feel the energy lines open. Keep elongated. Slowly. Take your time. Feel. 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 Feel that energy. Feel that heat. Purifying. Cleansing. Keep the spine elongated. Chin back, crown up, spine open. Hands eventually start to come down. Hands eventually come towards the lap. Place the right palm on top of the left. Thumb tips gently touch. Shoulders and chin back. Come into stillness. Try not to fidget. Just feel. Notice. Allow that feeling of aliveness. Feeling like every cell in the body is tingling, awake, alive, open, available, neutral. Bringing the palms together. Take a deep inhale. Exhale with a sigh. Inhale. Exhale, bowing forward. A moment of reverence and gratitude to that Satguru, that teacher within, guiding, protecting, illuminating. And slowly coming back up, opening the eyes. So, greetings. Hi, everybody. So good to see you all. I hope you like that meditation. It's a little different than the meditations we've done before. That's from the Kundalini tradition. This is merging with infinity. And I chose this meditation today to give us an experience of tapas, experience of heat. At the same time, it's kind of simple, right? It wasn't like it was super complicated. I mean, there were some pieces to it, but a lot of it has to do with holding that neutral mind, creating that neutral space while we're experiencing some discomfort, some little idiosyncrasies, some stuff is coming up, and it's just like we haven't kind of purified the body. And so when we actually sit with all this energy, all this prana moving in a particular position, doesn't really matter what position we're in, the body's going to start to experience some discomfort, some heat, some stuff in the knees, some stuff in the arms, the shoulders, whatever it is. And part of the practice is, well, can I just breathe through it, maintain a neutral mind while I'm going through, when I'm neither attached to it, I'm not building some kind of egoic structure around how great a yogi I am because I can hold my arms up over my head. No, there's none of that. You're just like noticing the energy, you're noticing how it's coming in waves, and you're building a capacity for more aliveness, more sensation, more actual, discomfort it's kind of a misnomer a little way, because it's not like, I'm not saying it's not uncomfortable sometimes, but we can actually say this is part of strengthening my ability. We can actually kind of get into it a little bit and notice that actually discomfort comes in waves. Holding your arms up over the head and things like that does not hurt the same all the time, right? So it'll wave in and out and be there for a while, and then it'll stop. And so we're noticing that energy is shifting around and things are changing, even though we're not necessarily doing anything different. We're holding the posture, breathing, but the energy is shifting around and changing. And that's like everything, right? So these are sort of metaphorical lessons, even though they're actual physical lessons, they're tangible. They're teaching us about these ebbs and flows, and they're building our capacity so that when stuff happens in our external life that makes us uncomfortable, we're not reacting all the time. And as most of us will attest, often when we feel some outside impulse that is uncomfortable, we do something to try, almost immediately, to try to get out of that discomfort, right? And usually we either run away or we fight it in some way. We used our fight or flight system to deal with discomfort. And what if we just said, okay, I'm uncomfortable, right? And let me just breathe into that and notice it, and notice how it will change. Even if we don't do anything, it will change. And we will build this capacity for the vicissitudes of life, for the things that that they don't prefer. And this gives us then freedom, because now we have more options to explore more of life's possibility, because we're not always fighting against our discomforts all the time, always trying to be in our comfort zone all the time. And so this is the gift of tapas, of the practices of tapas, are that they give us a capacity for more of life. And as I was saying this morning in class, the irony is we get a capacity for the difficult stuff, for the more kind of painful things. We also are building our capacity for the more pleasurable stuff, the more joy, the more love, the more just a sense of well-being. We're actually building the same muscles that give us more of a sense of joy and aliveness, are the same muscles that we use when we are actually dealing with hardship, sorrow, grief, pain, all these sort of things. They're the same kind of capacities. So this is the kind of gift of tapas, in a way, is we're going to get tapas in two ways. All right, one is involuntary and the other is voluntary, meaning life is going to present to us painful experiences. We're all pretty aware of that, I think, at this point. And that's a moment of, okay, can I bring some consciousness to this painful experience and see what it's teaching me, and how I can grow through it, and how I can build my capacity for being in difficult or painful experiences. Those are going to come to us like that's a life, right? And then the other way is voluntary tapas, which is I am going to create situations which are going to make me uncomfortable so that I can grow from them and I can purify. And things like changing our diet, not eating sugar, not drinking, all kinds of things are actually uncomfortable when we do them. When we give up something, or we change something, or we say we're going to start a new exercise routine, something like that. Those are, our body is kind of, it wants to tend towards inertia in some way. And not that that's always bad, but we actually overcome that resistance, overcome the discomfort in order to get the benefits of those things. And that is, so there's kind of involuntary tapas and then voluntary tapas. And what we want to do in some ways as yogis is create voluntary tapas experiences, so that they then build our capacity for the involuntary ones, which are going to come no matter what. So we actually are used to this feeling, if I'm uncomfortable, I'm not, and I'm not trying to run away from it or manipulate it or trying to get out of it in some way. I'm actually like, I know what this is like, and I know that there's actually something okay happening here as well. It doesn't mean that, listen, there's definitely difficult things out there, sad things, hard things. I'm not trying to despair, to say that that's not the truth of the situation, but we can all grow from those experiences, and we know that. You guys, we've all been around long enough to have gone through some difficult situations that if we look back on now, we would say, wow, I really grew in a way, or I was able to, sometimes we make a total mess of it, and then we learn from that too. But they give us these new insights, these new capacities that then we can take forward for other opportunities in our life, but also to start sharing this way. I mean, when we start to become more enlightened, so to speak, then we show others, just through, not in any like explicit or patriarchal way, we just show them through the way we're walking through this life, right? Like, oh, that's kind of pleasant, And, this is the stories that I love about people who have been pretty close to enlightenment, and how, and these kind of gurus that get their followers. And most of them, they can't understand them. They're speaking some language they don't understand. But they just want to be around them. And the reason why they want to be around them is because they are embodying this capacity, this light, this ability to be spacious regardless of the situation, right? So that is the gift of some of the more challenging aspects of yoga and meditation. And as I said before, we come into yoga and meditation because of the light stuff, because the sort of peace, the light, the love, the feelings of connection, the feelings of well-being, and that's all well and good. We need those hooks. We need those things to sort of like say, those first few times you go to a yoga class and you're just like, wow, man, I feel so much better, right? That's important, and it's real. And so we use those hooks to get us in. But as we go deeper in our practice, we start to realize we have blocks that are holding us back from manifesting our divine self. And as we confront those blocks, it's painful. It shows up as pain, basically. And that's where people usually take a detour, right? That's why, I tell this story about people. Literally, I've had this happen before. You guys will get a kick out of this because you're here. People coming into my class for the first time, and they sit down and they hear me do my little darshan thing at the beginning, and they get up and leave. Personally, I think that's hilarious, but it's because I've triggered something in them, and they're like, no, I'm not staying here, right? And so they're not gonna, they're not ready for whatever the gift was. Whether the gift is pleasant or unpleasant doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if the gift is pleasant or unpleasant. What matters is how do we react to the gift, and then so we start to build our capacity for more of reality. And as we do that, we start to walk through life with just this kind of grace that is, one, good for us, here we are, and two, good for others, because they'll start to recognize that. It might not even be on an intellectual level. It's probably not. It's on a much more visceral level. They'll start to go, wow, she's got something, and I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm wanting that something. And so maybe if I hang out with them, I'll get some of that something, and that's how these gurus basically got started, is because they had something that people wanted, and it wasn't so much intellectual. It was much more energetic and spiritual that they wanted, and they recognized. So yeah, I think tapas is one of these ones that's difficult to get our heads around because it sounds kind of arduous and austere, but it's an important part of the program to recognize that there's going to be some work involved, and it's not going to be all that pleasant. I mean, most of the enlightenment experiences that I have read about and learned about, the ones where people really broke through and got free, were death experiences. So basically they thought they were going to die, and I'm not saying like abstractly thought they were going to die. They really thought like, I think I'm going to die now, and they didn't, and they got through. But you can imagine if you are really in an experience where you think you're going to die, you're pretty terrified, you're pretty afraid. It's pretty like one would never necessarily wish for that, and yet they kind of got through that experience, and on the other side of that, there was this sort of freedom and peace that was that carried with them for the rest of their lives. So I'm not saying it all has to go that way. I'm just saying that we have to be willing to confront the things that keep us, that hold us in some sort of trap of our own making. You know, when we're feeling anxious, when we're feeling insecure, these are all sort of signs that we're bumping up against something that is not in alignment with our true self. It doesn't mean that these things aren't true, like losing a job or something like that. You know, that is a scary experience, right? Losing a loved one. These are definitely scary experiences and unpleasant experiences. But they aren't necessarily who we are. You know, it's the sense that we are, how attached we are to these things. Reality is jobs are going to come and go. Reality is people are going to come and go, right? We know this, but we sometimes fight against it, right? And so how do we start to build the capacity for recognizing and being compassionate with the vicissitudes, the painful aspects of our life, right? So it's not like being aloof or, not being sensitive, right? We want to actually feel. It's not about not feeling. We want to feel our pain and other people's pain. But what we're doing is building a capacity for that doesn't make us have to either run away or change it. One of the things, I'll just give one analogy before we dive into the book, is when I first went to Kripalu to do my teacher training. One of the things fairly early on in the training they instructed us is when people start crying, right, which they eventually are going to do in teacher training. Pretty much everybody does, because stuff comes up. You know, this is what yoga training does. It brings up our stuff, right? So the stuff's going to come up. Going to have a little catharsis. There's probably going to be some crying going on. All good. They said, all right, when someone else is crying, what we want you to do is hand them the tissue box and just sit there, right? Do not try to placate them. Don't say it's going to be okay. Don't rub their shoulders. You know, just hand them the tissue box and sit there and don't walk away. Don't pretend like it's not happening. So in this place, you can see how this is a beautiful practice and a beautiful tapas. Is I am willing to be with you while you are going through something painful. I'm not going to try to take your pain away. I'm not going to dismiss it. I'm not going to run away from it. I'm going to be right here with you while you have this experience of pain, right? Some release, something coming up. And then that gives the other person permission to have the experience, right? And to not either cut it short or pretend like it's not happening or to feel embarrassed that it's happening, right? I mean, most of the time, if we're honest in some ways about, and we talked about this more in the training, is that when we're placating somebody, when we're kind of over, oh, it's okay, and rubbing their shoulders, we're trying to actually run away from the pain in a little way. You know, I'm not saying it's not compassionate. It is. And in some circumstances, it's perfectly amenable, especially with a child or something like that, right? But with an adult, really, the best thing you can do with somebody who's in pain, unless there's something really practical you can do in that moment, right, is to just be with them while they're in it, right? And to genuinely be with them and to allow yourself to feel it too. You know, say that, okay, I'm willing to hold this capacity too. What a beautiful thing that is. What a gift that is to someone else. It actually does sort of spread out the pain a little bit. It does actually help them to process through their pain more efficiently, more effectively, because they know it's not wrong, right? One of the things is we often feel in pain or embarrassed or whatever, and there's this sort of guilt around it, right? Oh, I shouldn't feel this way, right? What if someone just sat with us and said, it's, this pain is okay, and not the situation, because what we're usually trying to do in that situation of placating is saying, oh, the situation is really better than it really is. This person passed away and died. It's okay. It's okay. No, maybe it's not okay, right? It's what it is. The pain and the feelings that we're having around it are okay, and it's sort of like, let's just allow ourselves to go through this process and be with this process. And that is a form of tapas without trying to necessarily change it. And we get ready for these moments by doing other things that allow us to recognize that pain is not it's not a bad thing. It's just it is a thing. And so how do we build our tolerance for it in healthy ways? We can get a little obsessive about this, so we need to be careful about how we set up the structure of our practices so that they're not some kind of obsessive compulsive self-hurting thing. It's not about hurting ourselves, right? It's about building a capacity for more aliveness. And so it's important to have that distinction. And this is, again, why you might work with somebody else, or have a mentor or something like that to help guide us through this. So there are obviously situations where we want to be careful if someone's depressed, for instance, and they're trying to create these austerities. Maybe not the right idea at that point. So there are some caveats to these practices, and we need to be aware of those as well. I think that's a good enough introduction. Why don't I read a little bit of from the book, from Deborah Adele's book, and then we can have a kind of a little discussion back and forth, a little comment back and forth. I want to hear about how you like the meditation too. All right, here we go. Tapas literally means heat and can be translated as catharsis, austerities, self-discipline, spiritual effort, change, tolerance, or transformation. Tapas has the sense of cooking ourselves in the fire of discipline to transform ourselves into something else. It is our determined effort to become someone of character and strength. Much like cooking an egg denatures the egg, changing it into a different structure, tapas eventually changes our nature, turning us into a cauldron that can withstand any of life's challenges. Tapas is the day-to-day choice to burn non-supportive habits of the body and mind, choosing to forsake momentary pleasure for future rewards. So again, this sounds a little intense, and I think we just want to recognize that we have this possibility of transformation, this possibility of becoming more in line with our divinity, right? But it's going to take some work on our part. It's not just we have to kind of focus on it. And as I've said before, life is going to be difficult no matter what. Okay, no matter what program you're on, there's going to be some disappointments and heartbreaks and all this sort of stuff. The question is, are we going to use those things for our self-actualization, self-realization, or are we going to just kind of keep sort of running around seeing how we can avoid having painful moments, And so tapas is this sort of shift in perspective as to recognizing that that self-discipline and some discomfort are actually part of our growth and are actually moments where we can become more self-aware. And so this is that sort of shift. A practice does not need to be daunting, however. The example of spiritual aesthetics might inspire us to a little more depth in our discipline. And much like a controlled burn, we need to pay attention to what is possible and what is safe and what is timely for our current life context. So that's what I said about, the kind of caveats. We don't want to overdo it. When we have tested the wind, we can light the match, willingly burning away our laziness and our selfish desires. Whether we practice tapas by showing up at our mat for a regular posture practice or through constant acts of selfless service, we offer ourselves to the next higher version of us. We willingly stand the heat so that we might produce a luscious bounty within our lives. So it's just this sort of acceptance of some discipline, of, even if it's that kind of moment of not reacting when someone says something. Like that's so empowering when someone says something that we either disagree with or maybe hurts a little bit. It feels like a little condescension or something. Why, if we don't feed that, right? And we don't remember that we might do the 4 agreements next in the book. I'm considering that. My favorite one of the 4 agreements is don't take anything personally. So that's a form of tapas right there, because something's coming at us that's sort of on a certain level, doesn't fit in with our picture of ourselves, or feels disparaging, or feels like, and how do we just not accept that notion? Stop, accepting that notion. Stay in that neutral mind, just like we did this meditation a few minutes ago, right? We did the meditation to practice staying in the neutral mind while the feelings, while the sensations, while even the stories of like, oh, I'm not a good yogi, I'm not a good meditator. You just come back to neutral, come back to neutral, come back to the breath. This is an incredible gift, all right, if we can actually do this while someone's, laying into us. Because remember, when someone's laying into us, it's their stuff. We might have a little something to do with it, but really it's like 90% their stuff. And they're just laying it on us. And okay, let me learn. There might be some truth in it, but they get all caught up in, oh my God, let me justify this, defend that. No. It's like a little nightmare solution. And so tapas is a way of starting to get ourselves free of those spirals that we catch ourselves in. It is almost as if God has checked the winds and started the fire, and we ourselves are the field that is being burned. And like my husband who watched his father burn a field, none of it makes sense to us at the time. And yet it is these times that shape and mold us into someone of depth. Our debris gets burned away, and we are left more humbled and strengthened by the mystery of what is beyond our grasp of control or understanding. It is these dark times of pain, loss, and confusion that we weave something profound within us. So what I love about this little paragraph is, this is that alluding to that first tapas, which is the involuntary tapas, right? The stuff that comes at us, the pandemic, right? None of us are to blame for that, but here it is, and we're in it. And so, how can we use this time? How can we use this holiday that we just had as a practice of tapas? How do we discipline ourselves to do something different for the betterment of not only myself and my family, but of our whole community, right? That's an act of tapas, an act of not just self-sacrifice, but of heat, because there is this feeling of loss, right? There is this feeling of discomfort in doing something a little bit different. And how can I lean into it? And then when we do, I'm guessing that most all of us had a pretty nice holiday. It might have been different. It might not have been exactly the way we're used to, but it was probably pretty nice because we kind of were able to get through, whatever ideas and notions that we had about how it was supposed to be, and then embrace what was actually there. And, this is pretty nice. I had a nice day. Very different than most of my Thanksgivings, and then all of my Thanksgivings up until this point, but really nice. So, there's that shift. We'll just read a little bit more here, and then we'll talk. It is in this is the quote I used in my newsletter. It is in this barren place where we have exhausted all that we have and all that we are, that new strength is shaped and character is born if we choose to fearlessly open ourselves to the experience. It is perhaps the greatest gift life could offer us. Charlene Westerman speaks truthfully to the danger and possibility of catharsis when she states that during these times we have two choices, to break down or to break open. We can't prevent times of catharsis in our lives or know their shape or outcome, but we can prepare ourselves for them through our daily practice, through building our ability to stay in unpleasantness, and through the small daily choices we make. So, I think, again, this is maybe the hardest of all the yamas and niyamas, is this tapas one. Is this, how do we actually create some discipline, some heat, but this was a big part of traditional monastic spiritual endeavors, whether it was Buddhism or Hinduism or Catholicism. They all have austerities, right? They all have fasting. They all have vows of silence. They all have all kinds of, crazy things which are not that comfortable to do. When we can argue about the efficacy and safety of them, but they're all there for a reason. They're there to build this capacity, build this ability to be with what is, and build our compassion for what is. Because again, we can't really have compassion without capacity, right? We can be, it's like those people who are they can be sort of empathetic with you, right? But not really that well, because if something really, they're not the ones you go to with something really difficult, because they don't have the capacity for it. It's not that they're not nice people. They just don't have the capacity to really hold that too, whatever it is. And we all have people like that who we share certain things with, but we don't share other things with. Why is that? Because they don't have the capacity to hold that stuff, right? But we, as yogis, work, on our capacity. It doesn't mean we're there, but it means we just try to create practices that prepare us for when some truth or reality comes at us, we are able to say, oh, and this too, and this too. How can I be present, available, graceful in this moment as well? And there are practices that we do in yoga and meditation, just like we did at the beginning of this session, that help us to do that. I've managed to talk and lead for almost an hour now, so I'm going to open it up to you guys, and let me know what you think of what we've been talking about so far. And yeah, so what do you guys think of all this? Somebody say something besides me. Anyone? You guys are all you're shell shocked. You're like, too much tapas. Anyone have any examples of this in their life that you remember? You got to unmute yourself. Examples of this you'd like to share, or some sort of place where you felt like you had to kind of deal with something, or maybe some practice that you've put in place that you found helpful. At times. And again, they don't have to be consistent forever, right? So say we do a practice sometimes we do a practice for like 20 days or 10 days or 40 days. We create a meditation that we do every day. And these things can be incredibly powerful, and they sort of add up over time. You can do a cleanse. You can... we talked about this before, I think, at some point, but about doing like a non-speaking weekend or something like that, where you set up your life so that you don't have to talk to anybody for a period of time, like at least a day if you can do it. But I would even, if you can get a whole weekend, that's even better. And you just put aside your phone, and you put aside your computer, and you just kind of slow everything down. Even like you might even put aside reading, because I know a lot of us like to read. But reading is, it's, let's face it, it's a distraction from ourselves. It's a nice distraction. It's a healthy distraction, but it's a distraction. So, we just try to kind of just be with ourselves. Well, this is a tapas. This is a serious practice, if you do this. And you're going to have insights, feelings into yourself that you wouldn't have otherwise, because most of us have got all kinds of really funky little tricks for getting us out of ourselves, right? And with us, this group here that I know pretty well, they're probably pretty healthy tricks. Like I'll go walking, or I'll read a book, or but we all probably have some less than healthy tricks. Like I'll eat some chocolate is one of my vices right now. A little bit of chocolate is fine, but too much chocolate is not so good for us, right? And so we all have these kind of little vices that we tend to turn to sometimes. And one of the things that can be very powerful is if we just pick one of those vices and we say, you know what, I'm not going to have chocolate for 2 weeks. I do this like all the time, because, I realize this is my little vice and let me just see what it's like without it. And honestly, it's pretty nice without it. And then I go back, because it's nice with it too. But sugar, I mean, it's really about the sugar with the chocolate. And because pure chocolate is quite good for us. But the sugar is not so good for us. So try taking sugar out of our diet for 3 or 4 days. That's the sort of cleanse in a way. You're going to feel better. You might not feel better at first because you're giving up your vice, but you're going to feel more healthy because sugar is an inflammatory. It's not very good for us. So you're going to, and these are those little tricks that we start to turn in the other direction. We start to learn like, oh, if I sit in this heat of this discomfort, something good comes on the other side, right? And some of them are not that hard to do. We can turn off our phone for a day, that's the way. There's lots of little tricks that we can do, which will have some discomfort because we realize, it's like, oh, this is unusual, don't really like this, but all of a sudden, stuff starts to open up. I mean, I use the analogy of Madeline, go ahead. Madeline, why don't you say something? Turn yourself on there for a second.
Okay. What I was going to say is like Thanksgiving. It started out as being, I don't know, sort of like a downer. And as the day went by, because of course I couldn't be with my family, as the day went on, we did a Zoom as a family. It was really fun. Everybody shared something, just as if we did it around the Thanksgiving table. And like my daughter-in-law said, she didn't have to cook for everybody. So that was a good thing. And we really had a nice time. I mean, my husband and I watched a movie. We shared in cooking. I don't know, it really turned out to be nice. We made plans for hopefully next summer for all of us to get together. Even though it may not happen, it's something that we are looking forward to. It may happen, who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, but I think we learn from our mistakes. The things that we did last year that weren't so great, we didn't do them this year. I mean, like we were much more thankful for so many more things. We looked at the bright side of it. We really did. And I think we've learned so much. We really have.
Mm-hmm.
We've learned to be by ourselves. We've learned to be comfortable with ourselves. And my husband was never that kind of person. And I think he too is beginning to do this.
Right. Being comfortable with yourself. I mean, that is one of the greatest gifts that we can all have, is to be comfortable with ourselves. And again, I think the pandemic in many ways has forced us into doing some of that work. And that is a gift that we will carry forward with us. So
absolutely. When we're frustrated from something, we can walk away from it and figure out why were we frustrated and be by ourselves. Mm-hmm. And yes, we're talking about when people agitate you. It's usually those people that are having a problem, not necessarily you. Coming up in the car, I'm at the Cape right now. Coming up in the car on the ride, my husband was so irritated, and he told me he was irritated with something I did, which I really didn't do. So for the rest of the night, for the rest of the time up, I was quiet. And I didn't force him into confrontation. And it works out great.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the whole thing. That's just maturity, right? Choosing our battles wisely, Exactly. And sometimes people just need to be frustrated, and we just let them. Like it will pass. Everything does flow. And sometimes we just need to get out of the way of people who are in that place, and so that's a good story. definitely. And not taking it personally. That's the other thing. It's just being able to, it's a really tricky thing when we're dealing with people, because on one hand, we want to be able to hear the truth of what they're saying. Like we may have something to do with what's going on, but we don't want to have to take responsibility for their reaction to it, right? So we can see maybe our role in some situation unfolding, and at the same time realize that that person has just got their own stuff going on and their own interpretations and their own baggage with it. And so how do I be mindful and respectful and listening, but not start to do the whole defensive self-beating myself up kind of stuff, And so, yeah.
But I didn't do anything.
Yeah, and often not saying anything is the absolute best solution.
Right.
Go back to the silence practice, right? Go back to, and not in a rude kind of way, but just, I'm not going to engage at this level. Because often when someone's frustrated, they're at a very low level. They're at a low level energy, right? And they're trying to bring you down to that level in a way. And so how do we say, you know what, I'm not going to that level. I'm going to talk about this when we can get at a higher level of just being able to talk. And it makes such a huge difference. The same topic of conversation can have a totally different outcome when people are at a kind of higher level of vibration than when they're in the kind of weeds of woe is me, or, you're treating me badly in some way. It's just not, it never goes anywhere good in that way. Yeah. Right. But we can practice pulling ourselves up to that level. That's, again, part of what tapas is this, how do I raise my vibration, raise my level up, even when something is presenting itself as challenging or uncomfortable. So,
agreed.
Yeah, good. Does anybody else want to add anything before we close this part of the class? We'll have a little follow-up afterwards again, but we're just about at an hour. Would anybody else like to add anything to the discussion or the insights about tapas? Okay, well, I will state it to complete that. Don't be afraid of tapas, right? Tapas is, it's all of us in some way. I know all of you pretty well. You actually have a lot of strength and a lot of capacity to be with what is, and so tapas is really just building upon that and taking on some of the things that are going to, in little ways. It doesn't have to be these huge, commitments, but just little ways of saying, okay, how can I explore this and create a discipline around it, and maybe for a little while, doesn't have to be forever, and just notice how it changes us. Notice how we grow. Notice how our energy starts to rise up. We get higher. We start to feel more spacious, more energy. We're not kind of down. We're raising that energy up, edging it out, getting into that light. So, so if you want to at some point explore individually, like little practices, you can reach out to me and we can talk more about it. But this is one of those kind of little keys that people tend to brush over in their yogic experience because they like the other stuff so much. But it's a key factor in our ultimate growth, is this willingness to kind of explore pain as its reality. And I say that a little, like not trying to put it on a high pedestal, but it is part of our life, and we can use it to actually help us grow. Okay, let's come into a seated pose. Feeling the sit bones into the ground, feeling the crown making its way up towards the sky. Begin to breathe deeply through the nose into the belly. Letting the belly rise away from the spine on the inhale. Let the belly fall back down towards the spine. Soften the shoulders, soften the face, and just feel ourselves one more time just landing here in this space. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. Kind of recognizing the gift that we give to ourselves when we come together in this way, in meditation and mindfulness, openness to explore, just recognizing, taking a moment of santosha of the blessing of this time that we get to spend together Even though we're spread apart, I'm actually getting more and more enamored with this medium allowing us to come together even though we are apart. Bringing the palms together at the heart center, take a deep inhale. Exhale, let it go with a sigh. Inhale. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May there be peace, peace, peace. Namaste.